Sneha Samyukta Harinam Sankirtan. Sneha means with affection. Samyukta means complete engagement. Full on. Fired up. And back home, back to Godhead in this one lifetime.
Very easily Vrindavan. There's no problem with getting mukti. But pure devotees are not interested in mukti. Pure devotees are interested in bhakti. And not any kind of bhakti. Because there's varieties of bhakti. There's Mishra Bhakti, Karma Mishra Bhakti, Gyan Mishra Bhakti, Yoga Mishra Bhakti. So pure devotees are not interested in any of these forms of so-called bhakti. Actually, they are not bhakti in the real sense. Because there's a mixture of desire for personal aggrandizement, personal sense gratification, or personal self-satisfaction. And even in the spiritual world, there are various types of bhakti. In Vaikuntha, bhakti is very highly, let's say, predominated, permeated with the attachment to various opulences of Godhead. They don't want to live without seeing Krishna's majesty and Krishna's opulences. Sadaishvarya Purna means he is full with beauty, knowledge, wealth, strength, fame, etc. Actually, Krishna of Vrindavan is most full with all those opulences, but because sweetness is predominating. But the devotees in Vaikuntha, they have a desire to be fulfilled by associating with the opulences of God. Therefore, Krishna shows him the opulences. But the devotees in Vrindavan, they see only the sweetness of Krishna, which is attainable by unalloyed devotion. And unalloyed devotion means to have no desire whatsoever except the pleasure of Krishna. Krishna's pleasure is governing the life and soul of the pure devotee, unalloyed devotee. Kubja was also a pure devotee. You know the story of Kubja? You must have read. So Kubja was a pure devotee. She was made as a pure devotee at the time when Krishna placed his feet on Kubja's breast. When Kubja invited to her home, and Krishna went there with Uddhava, and Krishna entered into the bedroom when Kubja came from preparing herself, making herself ready for Krishna, for her association with Krishna. Then Krishna grabbed her by the hands and dragged her onto the bed and placed his feet on her breast. And at that time, she became as a pure devotee. But her pure devotion is so much different from the pure devotion of the queens of Dwarka. And their pure devotion is so much different from the pure devotion of the gopis of Braja. The pure devotion of Kubja is called Sadharani Rati. Means that she has a type of desire to enjoy Krishna. She wants to enjoy Krishna's association. She wants to enjoy Krishna's embraces, to enjoy Krishna's kisses, etc. The queens of Dwarka, they are also relatively, let's say, plagued, as it were, with that mentality. 50% they want to enjoy Krishna's embraces. They want to see their husband. Rukmini Devi, when she sleeps with Krishna, just like you may have read that story in Krishna book called Lord Krishna's Daily Activities. Have you read this story? Lord Krishna's Daily Activities. It's mentioned how Rukmini heard the cock crowing and waking up Krishna, and she's condemning the cock. Damn you, cock, crowing. Why are you disturbing? You mean the night is ended already? I didn't even hardly get a single embrace or a single kiss from my husband. And Krishna, hearing the cock You know, he what is it called?
Gets up to do his
But he has to
disentangle himself.
Yeah, disentangle himself means that he forces himself free from the embrace of Rukmini. You know, meanwhile Rukmini is totally distressed, unhappy. You know, because she knows that Krishna's going to have to get up, and Krishna's going to do his morning ablutions, and then he's going to go to the Sudharma assembly house, and she'll have to go all day long without Krishna. You know. But there's a huge difference between the mentality or the attitude. See, Prabhupada has made a very important point. Prabhupada has told that it is not what we do, but it's the attitude with which we do something. One person is distributing books, and he's thinking that now everybody is going to recognize me as, number one, big book distributor, me. Mine is still there. And another person is distributing books and thinking that I'm so fallen, and rascal, that I have very little hope of going back to Godhead if I don't try to please my spiritual master by distributing these books. Is my only hope. So let me at least try. See? I may be big, I may not be big, whatever, but I know that my spiritual master will be pleased if I endeavor to make the arrangements for his preaching engagement with the fallen conditioned souls. Because his Bhaktivedanta purports are the purports of a fully self-realized soul. And therefore they're very powerful to impregnate the heart with pure spiritual acumen, as Prabhupada himself has said. Therefore, what will our 2-minute speech, here I am rambling on for better to read something from Srila Prabhupada's books. But anyway, you asked me to express something about my feelings of Srila Prabhupada, my experience with Srila Prabhupada. So, Srila Prabhupada is told that it's not what we do, but the attitude with which we do the thing. Just like the karmi is eating, but we're eating. But what's the difference between our eating and their eating? Theirs is gross sense gratification, and ours is relishing the saliva from the lips of Krishna, in the kisses of Krishna, as it's explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that when you taste the Mahaprasad, it is as if you're directly getting the kisses of Krishna, and the saliva of Krishna is what is making this Mahaprasad relishable taste. So by relishing the Mahaprasad, this is the proper way of honoring prasad. Not that we try to gratify our tongue with prasad, but that we appreciate the sweetness of Krishna, how Krishna has enjoyed this. See, just like Srila Prabhupada has told, that we offer Krishna what he wants. What does Krishna want? He wants Srimati Radharani. So we offer Radharani to Krishna, and then we relish the prasad. This is a very surprising statement that Srila Prabhupada has made. We relish the prasad. What does it mean to relish the prasad? If we offer the food to Krishna, and then we relish the prasad, we can understand. We gobble down the food. And this way we're relishing. By tasting. The flavors of the prasad. And trying to appreciate how Krishna has tasted this. And not only that, but appreciating, the bhakti of the devotee who went in, the bhakti of the devotee that went into the preparation of this nice prasadam, bhoga offering to Krishna. How the devotees have taken so much trouble, to please Krishna. So similarly, so how to relish the Radharani prasad? Because we've offered Radharani, we didn't offer food to Krishna, we offered Radharani. So how to relish is to appreciate how the sweetness of her person has enchanted the heart of Krishna. To appreciate how her kisses were relished by Krishna. Not that we gobble up Srimati Radharani trying to enjoy This can show you clearly the difference between prasad seva and prasad seva aparat. You understand? If someone is trying to enjoy for gratifying his palate or mitigating his hunger, the Mahaprasad, then the result is that he increases the duration of his material existence by getting material body after material body after material body. He may be able to get, this is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, I'm not making this up, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is telling like this, that he may get the he may get the chance to again come in contact with Mahaprasad in his next life for further purification from 11% to 12% starting in his next life, or from 50% and starting in his next life from 51% purification of his consciousness, or in other words, purification of his attitude toward the prasadam. So if someone is relishing the prasadam on the basis of a material attitude of trying to gratify himself, then he doesn't get the full benefit of associating with prasad, and actually he's not doing prasad seva. He's doing offense to the prasad, which is causing his material bondage. But if you will properly honor the prasadam, means that although he's tasting, prasadam will naturally taste good. It's unavoidable, generally. It's unavoidable. One time Prabhupada was at a life member's house, and the life member had cooked some nice prasadam, and Prabhupada told the devotees that this is prasadam. He says that it's so good that even if you're not hungry, you want to eat. Not that it's so bad that even if you're hungry, you don't want to eat. You see? So prasadam should be tasty. But even if this prasadam is not tasty, sometimes devotees complain. Here in Vrindavan, I've heard it so many times. People take prasadam so cheaply. If you were to get 1 grain of Mahaprasad from Vrindavan Dham, where are you from? Where's your place? Poland. So if you're in Poland and someone brings you, a little sabji or a little chapati, it may be dry, it may be old, it may be, even half molded, maybe it's putrid or whatever, but you're thinking, Vrindavan Prasad is from Vrindavan Prabhu's, and touching it, putting on the altar, offering arti, but you're here in Vrindavan, and throw it in the dustbin. You look out here, and I show you, that in the dustbin you'll find heaps and piles of prasadam. If that same prasadam was distributed to the devotees in the Western world, they'd be worshiping it. But here, we're taking it for granted and throwing it away. Give it to the monkeys. Fine, okay. At least
they got it also.
They have, but it's probably likely that they're relishing it more than we are.
They're so hungry.
Not just because they're so hungry, because they're probably more elevated than we are. They're born Brajvasis.
Right.
Only in the last life they probably committed some offense of, the Mahaprasad. So they took their birth as a monkey for offending the Vrindavan Mahaprasad, by discarding the Mahaprasad, on the basis of favorable or unfavorable, in terms of our sense gratification. You see. So in the same way that we should not offend the Mahaprasad, that we should relish how it is that the Mahaprasad was enjoyed by Krishna, how it is that the devotee who has prepared the Mahaprasad, so much trouble and effort and ingenuity, was involved in making the preparation nice. So similarly, how much, how it's just like, okay, I don't know if you have experience. Are you from Christian background? You've experienced Christmas, huh? And there's a Christmas tree or something, and there's some presents, nicely wrapped in gift wrapping with nice colorful paper and a bow around it and everything. No? So or maybe on the birthday, say a birthday party. Have you ever experienced a birthday party? Huh?
Yeah.
So your mother or your sister, made a birthday present for you, wrapped it up nicely, and put a nice bow and everything. They took so much trouble, and then they bring it to you, and you go rip. Rip off the birthday, rip off the ribbon, rip the paper, and they're going, oh no, you ruined it, because they, they put so much trouble and effort, so they mildly admonish you because you could have at least undone the tape neatly, and unfolded, undone the bow, but instead you just ripped into it, So in the same way, here the Sakhis and the Manjaris, the maidservants of Radharani in the Nikunja, preparing Radharani for her meeting with Krishna, right? And they're dressing her so nicely, and they're putting nice gopi dots and everything, and putting nice musk dot, and putting nice ornaments on Srimati Radharani, and beautiful cloth, and making her braids so nicely and everything, and along comes Krishna, and he just rips into it, instead of, he could have been a little more neat about it, he could have, instead of, just, kissing off her musk dot, and smudging her eyeliner, and ripping her blouse, and all these things which go on. Krishna. I'm talking about Krishna. You know who is Krishna? He is a debauchee in the real sense of the word, in the true sense of the word. But transcendental debauchee. His debauchery, is the debauchery of the supreme enjoyer. So it's like gold compared to the iron of the ridiculous excuses of so-called debauchery, in this material world. It is not debauchery at all. It's just hellishness. Real debauchery is Krishna. His debauchery is transcendently blissful, because it's Krishna enjoying the offering of the devotee's heart. He's ripping the blouses of the gopis, rips Radharani's blouse open, so he can see the offering of her heartfelt expressions of desire to please him, to satisfy him. You see, the bodies of the gopis are, and the bodies of Kaur, all the bodies are simply they're the transcendental manifestations of the desire to satisfy Krishna. The body is simply the vehicle through which the heart's desires to please Krishna is expressed. Just like Balaram, he's Adi Guru. You understand? You've heard this before?
Yeah.
Balaram is Adi Guru. So, as Adi Guru, this means that Krishna is Sevya Bhagavan. Balaram is Sevaka Bhagavan. Balaram is the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. As such, he has the desires to serve Krishna in every way possible. There's no end to the desires for Balaram, in Balaram, to serve Krishna. You understand? Balaram wants to serve Krishna in all the rasas. He serves Krishna by manifesting his Shanta Sarup, various Shanta Sarupam. That means that he takes the form of Krishna's pillow, he takes the form of Krishna's bed, he takes the form of Krishna's asan, the form of Krishna's Brahman thread, when he has a Brahman thread. In Braja he doesn't have a Brahman thread, mind you.
How can we put one on the deity then?
Anyway, he must be coming after he got his, when he came back to Vrindavan.
Anyway.
Anyway, so, but in any case, the Baladev takes the form of the dwelling place of Krishna. He takes the form of the shoes of Krishna doesn't have shoes, not in Vrindavan. In other places, expansions of Shankarshan takes the form of shoes and things like that. In Dwarka and whatnot. Yes, he takes the form of the dust of Braj, which forms the playground for Krishna's Madhurya Leelas, etc. So in this way, Baladev is taking these varieties of forms. So similarly, he's taking the form of in the Dasya Ras, his Baladev Sarup will suffice, for expressing that bhav. He wants to, just like he wants to become the bed. So in his Baladev Sarup, he's going to lie down and Krishna's going to lie on top of him. So in order to serve Krishna for his pleasure, he transforms into a different form. But it's still Baladev. It's still Baladev Tattva. It's still Sevaka Bhagavan Tattva. See, manifesting in his Shanta Sarup, you see. In his Baladev Sarup, in his as the he can manifest Dasya Bhav. He serves Krishna in various ways, and he serves just like it's mentioned that in each successive higher rasa, the subordinate rasas are included. You understand? So in Dasya Bhav, Shanta Ras is also included. In Sakhya Bhav, Dasya Ras is also included. And in Vatsalya Ras, the Shanta Ras is also included. So because Balaram is the older brother, he has also a Vatsalya mood toward his younger brother Krishna, which means a protective mood. He wants to protect. So that protection is the manifestation of Baladev's Vatsalya Bhav toward Krishna. So Baladev, in his Vatsalya Ras, he serves Krishna as the older brother, protects Krishna, etc. And in Sakhya Ras, he is friends with Krishna, and they fight and enjoy pastimes of equality. And in Dasya Ras, he serves Krishna because Dasya Ras is also included in that in his Sakhya Ras and in his Vatsalya Ras. So it can manifest time to time separately. See, and it will not be unbefitting his particular Sarup as Baladev. You see, but just like you've read Chaitanya Charitamrita, huh? So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's mention of how Krishna saw his reflection. When he saw his reflection, then springing within his heart arose the desire to embrace his own form in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Because this desire manifested in his heart, there was possibility for that psychology, to arise, which became the foundation of the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sarup, Gora Sarup. Understand? So, because he wanted to relish the mood of Radharani from a differentiated position than himself. So he wanted to see himself and take the differentiated position as the devotee of himself in order to relish the mood, experience and serve himself, So not only that, but in the beginning, Krishna was one. Radha and Krishna are one. But that means that Radharani is the Antaranga Shakti of Krishna. The Antaranga Shakti, Antara means internal. So within Krishna is his Antaranga Shakti. But he manifested that Antaranga Shakti is Swarup. Swarup means his own form. So he's manifested his own form in the form of the Antaranga Shakti in a differentiated way as Radha and all of her expanded forms. In other words, he's manifested himself as Radha for the purpose of serving himself. You understand? So, but he cannot directly experience what Radharani is experiencing. Radha and Krishna are one soul in two different bodies. This is the conclusion of our charges. One soul in two different bodies. Yet, even though they are one soul, it is like one flame, which is having, it is one flame, but there's two, or one ghee wick, which is having two wicks off of one, what is it called?
Base.
Balls. Like there's a ball on the bottom of the ghee wick, and there's two, two wicks in this, off the same lamp. In other words, but this wick is burning a bluish color, and this wick is burning a yellowish color, golden color, like that. So there's some difference in the experience of the Purusha and the Prakriti manifestations of the self-same individual, you see. So Krishna wanted to experience something that he was not able to experience from the standpoint of the Purusha. You understand? So this is all described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm sure you've read it, and it's probably old news to you. But still, for the sake of discussion, we're rediscussing some of these things, so that we can understand how it is that Radharani is the self-sum manifestation of Krishna's desire to serve himself in the Madhurya Ras. You follow? It's not escaping you, I hope. Because Radharani is I'll try to repeat it. Radharani is the self-sum manifestation of Krishna's own desire to serve himself in Madhurya Ras. That constitutes Radharani. See? Yet, and so therefore, Radharani's form, her swarup, is the suitable vehicle, the suitable medium through which Krishna's desire to serve himself in Madhurya Ras can be expressed. You understand? You following? So, therefore, in other words, when Krishna saw himself in the reflection, he wanted to embrace himself as Radha. See, but from his standpoint as the Purusha, he was unable to fulfill his desires. So he had to adopt some features of Radha's Swarup to facilitate his experience. So Radharani was merciful to him, and gave him the facility for having that experience by sharing her duty and her bhav. You see. So in this way, he was able to gain access in his Gaur-lila. You see. So, but it should be understood that Madhurya Swarup is the Swarup which is manifest by the will of God for the purpose of expressing the desires of the Antaranga Shakti of Krishna, the Ladini Shakti of Krishna, to please Krishna, to satisfy Krishna in Madhurya Ras. So, but Subal, who is the Gopa expansion of Radha, Subal is Radha, but he is the direct Sakhya expansion of Radha. Madhu Mangala, you know Madhu Mangala? The funny Brahmin boy? Bhattu, his name.
Yeah.
He's fond of joking. He's what is called a what is it? Comedian, yeah. Anyway, that's the English word.
Hasyavas.
No. Anyway, a certain kind of sukkah. Vidusaka.
Oh, yeah.
Vidusaka, yes. So,
Quarreling joke.
yeah, joking.
You don't know my
Yeah.
definition.
So that this Madhu Mangala is the Gopa Swarup of Lalita Devi, who is an expansion of. In other words, Radharani wants to manifest a particular service relationship, just like Radharani, because of the expansions of herself, which get in the way of her own relating with Krishna, such as, who is Jatila? Jatila is none other than Radharani manifest in such a way, or Chandravali is none other than Radharani manifest in such a way as to create, let's say, anxiety in the heart of Srimati Radharani. The superiors are the elderly gopis and gopas are nothing other, ontologically speaking, they're nothing other than Srimati Radharani, But they're making it so that Srimati Radharani is feeling awkward in the presence of superiors, who so she will not be able to be carefree in the matter of placing her arm on the shoulder, of Krishna. After all, mother-in-law is there, etc. So she has a desire to place her arms on the pleasure of Krishna, even in the presence of her superiors. So, for this purpose, she manifests her Sakha Sarup. Understand? As Subal, because Subal, right in the presence of all the superiors, Subal is Radharani placing her hand on the shoulder of Krishna in Sakya Ras. Her Sakya Sarup facilitates the fulfillment of her desire to do that. You understand? Yes, so in any way, like this, we should understand that Balaram, just like Krishna, sees the reflection of himself and desires to embrace himself in the mood of Radharani. So Krishna has to see a reflection because he can't see himself. He's not looking at himself. Although Krishna can be himself, looking at himself also, but for the purpose of Leela, by the dint of the action of Yogamaya, Krishna is not able to see himself. So, but he's dependent on a reflection of himself before he can see himself and be enchanted, enamored by the beauty of himself in such a way as to cause him to desire to embrace himself, in Madhurya Ras. But Baladev doesn't have to see a reflection of Krishna to see him and see how beautiful he is, see how completely wonderful and because Baladev is non-different from Krishna. Just like you can understand, if the psychology can arise in Krishna, who is none other than himself, then it can also arise in Balaram, who is none other than himself, to embrace Krishna in the mood of Radharani, in Madhurya Ras. But, try to understand, the Baladev Sarup, as a male Sarup, is not suitable. The Radharani Sarup, the female Sarup, is the suitable medium through which to express that Madhurya Ras, or that Madhurya Bhav, for giving pleasure to Krishna in that way. So, but the Baladev Sarup is not suitable, because he's a male. It's suitable for like fatherly, elderly, brotherly, mood. It's suitable for friendly mood. It's suitable for servant mood. It's not suitable for pillow mood, or bad mood, or whatever, flute mood, or stick mood, But it's certainly not suitable for the Madhurya Bhav, the expression of the Madhurya Bhav. So Balaram, he wants to also serve Krishna in the Madhurya Ras. You see, he wants to serve in all rasas. So in this way, he serves in the Shanta Ras, Dasya Ras, Sakya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, but he also serves Krishna in the Madhurya Ras, but not in his Baladev Sarup, just like he doesn't serve in the Shanta Ras in his Baladev Sarup. So similarly, he has to change his Sarup to give expression to the Madhurya Ras. So he expands himself in his Madhurya Sarup as the younger sister of Srimati Radharani. And in this way, although Baladev being the older brother of Krishna, there's some impediment to the fulfillment of his desires to express his love for Radharani. Because socially, Radharani feels embarrassed before the older brother of her lover, like that. So if Balaram will be walking on the path and he will see that there are some golden Govardhan Shilas, then he will think that how these Shilas have turned golden, it must be because the daughter of Vrishabhanu, my younger brother's sweetheart, has come this way. So then immediately he changes his direction and goes another way, so as to avoid a difficult circumstance or an embarrassing circumstance for Radharani, because he doesn't want to embarrass Radharani. But because he does like that, and if Radharani sees some crystal Shilas on Govardhan Hill, then she thinks, oh, the older brother of my Priyatama must have come this way. So then she changes her course so as to avoid, like this. So due to social circumstance, Baladev is not able to serve Srimati Radharani. But doesn't mean he doesn't have the desire to serve Srimati Radharani. All the residents of Vrindavan love Srimati Radharani. Radharani is the queen of Vrindavan, for God's sake. You think that they're not going to have love for Radharani? So Balaram is also a resident of Vrindavan, and he also has love for Radharani, but unfortunately, due to social circumstances, he's not able to freely express that love. So he fulfills that desire by expanding in his Madhurya Swarup, to become as the younger sister of Radharani and have the best opportunities to associate and serve Srimati Radharani, as the maidservant of Srimati Radharani, Srimati Ananga Manjari. Ananga Manjari is the younger sister of Radharani, and she's the Madhurya expansion of Balaram. So, it's necessary for understanding these points I brought out to make it more clear how it is that when Krishna will be ripping the blouse, breaking the necklaces, etc., that actually what he's really getting to is he's getting to the substance of that which is the suitable medium through which the Madhurya Bhakta may express his Madhurya Prema for the pleasure of Krishna. In this way, the body of Radharani is non-different. The body of the devotee is non-different from his very heart's desires to serve Krishna in one of the 5 primary rasas. So in different ways, Krishna will be enjoying the association relationship. Just like one time, Srila Prabhupada was asked that Srila Prabhupada, in the spiritual world, everything is a person, right? Prabhupada says, yes. And then the devotee says, I heard this on a audio cassette. The devotee says, Srila Prabhupada, the sweet balls are also persons, right? If everything's a person, then sweet balls are also persons. And Prabhupada says, yes. And he said, but Srila Prabhupada, what does the sweet ball experience? When he's being eaten by a cowherd boy. And Prabhupada's answer was, why don't you go there and find out? In other words, if you want to understand what a sweet ball experiences, then you can become a sweet ball. And experience what is the use of asking such a question otherwise? So anyway, so similarly, different devotees will be having naturally the desire to experience being enjoyed by Krishna in various ways. Our position is to be enjoyed by Krishna. not to enjoy Krishna. Unalloyed devotion is to solely focus on the principle of being enjoyed by Krishna. How Krishna is enjoying. What is his happiness? What is his distress? See? So, just as we were making this point, that Radharani enjoys being enjoyed by Krishna. But she's not enjoying Krishna. That is not her business. Her business is not to enjoy Krishna like Kubja. The queens of Dwarka, Rukmini, she's condemning the cock, and feeling depressed when Krishna has to slacken her embrace to get up and go about his daily duties. But and Radharani also, she's in Vrindavan. Radharani also condemns the cock. She's telling the cock to go to hell. Why don't you go and crow in hell? She tells the cock. In one of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's books, she's telling like that. So she's telling like that why don't you go and crow in hell? And so, but her telling the cock to crow to hell, go to hell and crow in hell, and Rukmini is telling the cock to go to hell, are completely different. Rukmini wants to sleep with her husband. She wants to see her husband. She wants to relish the embraces of her husband, etc. But and she sleeps with her husband, etc. But Radharani, she doesn't want to sleep with Krishna. She doesn't want to relish the embraces of Krishna. She doesn't want to, let's say, enjoy Krishna's association. But she sleeps with Krishna. So this is amazing to understand that Rukmini is sleeping with Krishna and Radharani is sleeping with Krishna. But there's a vast difference between the mentality of Rukmini, like night and day, and Radharani. Rukmini wants to see her husband. Rukmini wants to embrace her husband, enjoy the embraces of her husband. But, and therefore she sleeps with him. Krishna condescends to fulfill the desires of Rukmini. She's approaching in this way, and Krishna's condescending to fulfill her desires. But Radharani, although she's sleeping with Krishna, we should not make the mistake of thinking, just like a young man and a young girl in this world, they may be sleeping with each other. But we should not make the mistake of thinking that Radharani sleeping with Krishna is like a young man and a young woman in this world sleeping. The young man and the young woman in this world, they're sleeping together, is totally abominable. Whether it is licit sex or illicit sex and illicit sex are both sinful, criminal. Hirachur or kirachur. Kirachur means cucumbers, and hirachur means diamonds. So Prabhupada is told like this, that if even the so-called religious sex life in the Grihastha ashram, how can we call anything which is criminal, sinful, as religious? Let's think about it a little seriously. You understand my point? How can we call something which is sinful as religious? But we want to say, for encouraging purposes, that at least you shouldn't be the hirachor, diamond stealer. Because diamond stealer will get grand larceny punishment, and hirachor only stealing cucumbers. But stealing is stealing. Sinful is sinful. For sin, there must be sinful reaction. So sinful reaction means bondage within this material world. That's why Srila Prabhupada is told that by entering the Grihastha ashram, we lessen our chances for going back home, back to Godhead in this lifetime by 75%. Why? Because there must be some problem. It's not that we're not increasing our chances for going back home, back to Godhead by 75%. Prabhupada is told that we're lessening our chances for going back home, back to Godhead by 75% by entering the Grihastha ashram. And that is illicit sex, so-called religious connection with wife, etc. So religious means that it is you can say as regulated sin. You understand? This regulated sin. So it is not totally sinful because you're submitting to some regulative principle of Scripture. Just like the man will whisper into the ear of the goat, that I'm killing you in this lifetime for my sense gratification. So in your next life, you will get the chance to kill me. In other words, I will become a goat, and you will be the human being, and you will kill me in a future life. And so under regulative principles of Shastra, by chanting this mantra on the dark moon night, a black goat, not a white goat, under regulative principles, that if I would chant this mantra, that after
crippled life is allowed up to the age of 50.
Why does Krishna say that you sex life?
Please remember that Krishna didn't only say that he's sex life, that it is not contrary to religious principles, but he also says that of gamblers he's the cheat. So I'm assuming then, if we're gonna really condone the sex life, which is representative of Krishna, then we should also be able to condone gambling if you were a cheat. Because he says, of gamblers, I am the cheat. The person who cheats while gambling is representing Krishna. So therefore, that person, it's all right to be a cheat if you gamble. If you gamble and you don't cheat, then that is not acceptable. But if you gamble, if you cheat while gambling, then that's acceptable because you will be the representative of Krishna. He also says that Mrigosmi, I am the lion. So I guess it's all right to be a lion. He also says of aquatics, I am the shark. So I guess it's all right to become a shark. Can you follow my logic? So just because Krishna says, that I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that, doesn't mean that necessarily means that we should embrace, the principle of associating ourselves, intimately with that. It's not that just because Krishna is the lion that we should associate intimately and go embrace, and dance with the lion in rasa dance. Did you ever hear of the gopis dancing with the lion in the rasa dance? Open your mouth.
Say,
put your head in the lion's mouth. Because of Krishna. How seriously are we supposed to take these statements. You know, do you mean to tell me that every lion that walks by is Krishna? There isn't anything which isn't Krishna. Krishna says that sex life which is not contrary to religious principles, that I am. But to be real, I would take it one step further to say that sex life which is contrary to the religious principles is also Krishna. Because to be real, there isn't anything which isn't Krishna. You know, aborting the babies in the womb is also Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You know, everything you see is Krishna. The slaughterhouses are also Krishna. The atom bomb is also Krishna. As a matter of fact, you know, when Prabhupada was eating his kachuris in Calcutta, you know, he wouldn't give up eating his kachuris. You know, when the bombs started flying, the Germans were bombing. Who was bombing?
Yeah.
Japanese, Germans, somebody.
I don't know. I think it was the Germans.
Germans, maybe.
Yeah.
But the bombs were dropping like anything, and he was hearing bombs exploding, and he said, "This is Krishna." He was saying that these bombs were Krishna. But does that mean that just... And he says, but this is not a very beautiful face of Krishna. Not a very lovable face of Krishna, he said. So just because, you know, Prabhupada said that the bombs are Krishna, so that means that we have right to go around and bombing everybody?
Snaking everybody out.
Because bombs are Krishna? You understand? So anyway, let's leave this subject matter. The point is that we're ultimately driving at is that there's a great need to appreciate, you know, that Srila Prabhupada is our best friend. He's not just you know, a monolithic authority figure in our lives, but he's our best friend. You know, he's our Sakha, or he's our Sakhi, our Priya Sakhi. In Madhurya Ras he will manifest the Sakhi Swarup. To his Madhurya Bhaktas, Srila Prabhupada manifest his Sakhi Swarup. And to his Sakhya Bhaktas, he manifests his Sakha Swarup. To his Vatsalya Bhaktas, he manifests his Vatsalya Swarup, either male or female. The female Vatsalya Swarup is the more intimate form of Vatsalya Bhava, because Krishna is more intimately connected with the mother than the father, sucking the breast milk and directly enjoying the product of mother's body. In the Madhurya Ras, Krishna directly enjoys the body, so there's more degree of intimacy, intensity. In the Sakhya Ras, Krishna may enjoy, you know, the gift of the boy, which is not a product of his body. Madhurya, in Vatsalya Ras, you know, the mother in Vatsalya Ras is giving a product of her own body for Krishna's enjoyment. Anyway, so Prabhupada is certainly our best friend. And not only that, but totally transcendentally blissful friend. Meaning that by his grace, one can actually have at least a glimpse of the experience of the Anandamoy platform. There's many incidences, you know, when devotees were in the presence of Srila Prabhupada. I've also experienced it in Kirtan. That that simply by the presence of Srila Prabhupada, suddenly the whole atmosphere becomes transformed into raving, ecstatic, blissful experience in the assembly of the devotees. Actually experiencing that the Anandamoy Ananda Shakti becomes let's say pervading the whole atmosphere and permeating the hearts of all the devotees. I've heard devotees telling of such experiences, in Prabhupada's physical presence. Rupanuga Prabhu in America was one who told me also, about such an experience, where they were with Prabhupada and suddenly everyone became completely ecstatic, and crying and horripilation and shivering in the bodies, and they experienced, but they could directly perceive that it was his influence. And I also had directly such experience in another dream, that Srila Prabhupada, from him, he was expanding his Anandamoy Shakti into my heart, and I was actually experiencing transcendental ecstasy, bliss coming from him. And similarly in Kirtan, by the grace of the Holy Name. Sometimes in the Kirtans, suddenly the whole thing becomes totally ecstatic, overwhelmingly ecstatic. Beyond what is, let's say, a humanly thinkable, a humanly thinkable experience. To where the heart becomes agitated, the eyes are pouring tears, and the hairs are standing on end in Kirtan. That though it is not attributable to me, but because the mercy of the Holy Name is expanding, and so that experience is there. I've seen it also, and during certain experiences in Kirtan, in my in the course of my Krishna consciousness, I've also inquired from other God brothers who were present at the time of that same Kirtan that I was also experiencing, and they were also experiencing. It was because the Kirtan, in other words, Mahaprabhu was manifesting in the Kirtan. Ladini Shakti was descending upon us in the Kirtan, in the course of our performance. Although we were, the same, foolish bungling bhaktas that, even as a bungling bhakta, we were having that experience. Even before I was initiated. Before I was initiated, even before I shaved up.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah, right.
I was going out in the first week of my Krishna consciousness. We were going out for 10 to 14 hours daily doing Sankirtan. Harinam Sankirtan. And, we would take turns distributing Bhaktivedanta magazines side by side with our Sankirtan performance. And then so in the evening we would come back and read Krishna book, while drinking milk and everything. And it was really blissful. I was a hippie, when I joined. I came from that hellish, species of life. But I had hair down to my knees almost. Big long red hair. And I still had the hair at that time when I was, but they because I wasn't allowed to shave up yet because they wanted to make sure that I was, gonna, follow, not that I shave up and then go smoke dope or something, but so they had me braided all back, and I kept it gathered together in a braid, which is a huge long braid. And even when I shaved up, I kept that my sika was as long as my hair was, Now I hardly have anything at all, I can't even tie it in a knot. But I remember one time my Sankirtan leader at that time, because I had this huge long braid, and he said, Bhakta such and such, that your Sika is is a whopper. We got to cut it at least in half, so that I reluctantly surrendered, okay, now you cut off all my other hair, at least you left me a little bit, and now you want to cut that in half too, so and of course that was after my, that was the beginning of the end of my Sika, But anyway, within the first week, even I hadn't, I'd given up smoking dope. I was vegetarian for, at least a couple of years before I joined the movement. And, I was like a health food nut, fanatic. Actually, I understood that I'd read somewhere about karma, and that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, and that there was that was before I read Prabhupada's books, and that there was there was sin. If you eat something, then you're taking karma, So I had reduced my eating to only 3 figs a day. I was eating only 3 figs a day for more than a year. Yeah, 3 figs and water. 3 figs a day was sustaining me, and I was so thin. I was extremely thin, practically bones. But I was afraid to eat anything because I knew that, that if you eat, you are what you eat, so to speak. You become an animal. You become, I don't know why I thought I should become a pig, But
fruitarian, figure.
Whatever, but I was eating so little, And then when I came to the movement, the first day, the first Sunday feast I came to, from eating 3 figs a day, to 5 huge platefuls, of halava and all kinds of outrageously wonderful prasad. The prasad in the beginning of the movement was intense. There's no prasad that even compares to the prasad that we had in the beginning of the movement. And at least in America, it was like really intense. And then at the end of 5 huge plates of prasadam, I ate 20 poppers, and they were big-sized poppers cooked in ghee. 20, I counted them. And I became so bowled over, by the mercy of Krishna. I was told that that this was the mercy of Krishna and everything. That was, they were trying to explain to me what prasadam was, and I came to the conclusion that Krishna must be merciful because I didn't do anything, to deserve this, And they just came and they were so nice. The devotees were so nice, They were so kind and merciful, and just asking me, do I want any more? Do I want any more? Like that. Then at the end, after I finished 20 poppers, then it was time to clean up. I was like the last guy, to finish prasadam, and then it was time to clean up. So then they came and asked me, do you want to do some devotional service? I said, well, yeah, sure, why not? Devotional service, sure, it sounds great. So then they had me help them wash the floor, and then after the Sunday feast, this was before I moved in. It was like the first Sunday feast that I attended. After the Sunday feast, then what did we do? Because we had the Sunday feast in the temple room. The prasadam was served out in the temple room. It was kind of like our temple was a townhouse thing, type of building, row house type of thing. So there was limited space and everything. So we didn't have a prasadam room, but we had a temple, combined temple room prasadam kind of program. So we washed the floor of the temple, and then so that was my devotional service, right? So then immediately everyone hauls out the mridangas and kartals, and we start having an uproarious kirtan. We like pigged out to the max on the prasadam. The philosophy was to fill the bellies so full, that we couldn't waddle away. Like ducks, waddling away. We became so full, that we couldn't go away. So this was Prabhupada's philosophy. In the beginning, it was okay, and after a while, we had to start controlling our senses, But every weekend, for the first 3 years of my devotional service, this was our program, Is that Sunday feast meant that there was kirtan, like madmen, in the temple room, before the Sunday feast. There was kirtan. First there was kirtan where we were sitting down and chanting, and then the kirtan leader would get up and teach everybody the Swami step, and then there would be a short lecture, and then there would be the Sunday feast kirtan, and the Sunday feast kirtan was like totally right on, completely exuberant, Then everyone collapsed, around the temple room, and they came out with the prasadam, and then after filling ourselves up to the neck, or to the ears, and the the neck is lower than the ears. To the ears is a better description. This is the way I used to eat, But then I was surprised, that immediately after, why we were cleaning the temple room floor. I wasn't thinking we were cleaning the. First, I was thinking we were cleaning the temple room floor because everybody ate everything. But then I realized that why we were cleaning the temple room floor was to make the floor ready for more dancing and chanting. And we danced and chanted for another 3 hours. 3 hours continuously. We after and that was the way we were supposed to. Of course, a few devotees went to wash the pots. But most of us all got together and started dancing and chanting for at least 2 or 3 hours. And I remember that first time that happened, I was dancing. I had my eyes closed. I wasn't at all aware of the passage of time. My eyes were closed the whole time, and I was just dancing and dancing and dancing and dancing, and it was so ecstatic and so blissful. That was the first time I ever experienced Sunday feast. The first time I ever experienced, they pulled this kirtan after the feast program, and I was dancing and dancing for 2 hours, 3 hours continuously. It was I think it was about 3 hours. But then when finally the kirtan ended, I opened my eyes and everything was like so vibrant and amazing. It wasn't just because my eyes were closed, and everything was bright because I opened my eyes. It was dark inside and also light outside. But it was like totally vibrant. The whole world was like surcharged with spiritual nature, And I wasn't on drugs either, But then suddenly I realized that the whole bottoms of my feet were totally blistered. And while I was chanting and dancing, I was totally unaware of time. I was totally unaware of my body, or at least the pains and pleasures of my body, because I was absorbed in some very profound ecstatic experience in the kirtan. So then Haribol. Anyway, after I joined, and we were going out daily and chanting for, like 10 hours a day, on the streets. And we'd come back and take some little prasad and some milk. But then we were while reading Krishna book. Prabhupada said that if you read Krishna book for 15 minutes before taking rest, then you'll dream of Krishna. So anyway, we all in our ashram, there was brahmachari ashram was like just one big room, and there was about 20 of us, and we were just all we'd all lie down on the floor in kind of like this sort of row barrack style on the floor, and so everyone was going to sleep. We were all sleeping, except for myself. I was laying there, and I started to doze a little bit. Do you have experience of what we call the twilight zone? Huh? Which is it's the stage between waking and dreaming. You understand? There's the dream state, and there's the waking state. But between the dream state and the waking state, there's a subtle state, which in which you can see ghosts and various other things, So or subtle entities like that, because there's a subtle dimensional eye, which is opened in that condition. So I was starting to doze, but my eyes were open, and then but I was not dreaming, nor was I actually directly awake. I was in that partially awake state, and then suddenly I hear a very amazing sound, and it was undiscernible. I couldn't understand the sound, but it was extremely captivating sound, and it was getting louder and louder, and apparently it was as if it was getting closer and closer. It was like hearing it from a distance, and it was getting closer and closer. And then, I told you this story before, right? It was as it was getting closer and closer, and then it's just like seeing this painting. The moon is in the distance, right? You can understand the moon is in the distance, huh? But actually, the moon is right there on the wall, But because the painting has that multi-dimensional effect, it appears that there's a distance in the painting and a foreground to the painting, So suddenly I realized, I saw that as I was hearing the sound, first I was hearing the sound, and the source of the sound was not visible. Then suddenly, as if it was coming out of a painting, but it wasn't coming out of a painting, it was just, all there was a wall. But it was as if it was coming from a long distance away. I suddenly saw that there was a stampede. You know what stampede is? In America, there was like these buffaloes, bison, and the white men, not cowherd boys, but the cowboys, they would hunt these buffalo, and many times they would get behind them with their horses and run them, and the buffalo would be panicking, and they would be running like anything, a stampede, and then they would run them off of a cliff into a canyon and kill them like this by hundreds of buffalo, And then they would go down and gather all the hides. You know, it was a horrible. Hare Krishna, I shouldn't even be speaking these things. One of my babies. But just to give you an idea what a stampede is. Stampede means, you know, like hundreds of people, you know, running together. You know, forcefully running. You know. So I saw that the sound was coming from a stampede of cowherd boys and calves and cows. And what was the noise? And I also saw that there was Krishna and Balaram. They were coming toward me. Out of the wall. From beyond the wall. Through the wall, so to speak. It was on a different dimensional platform. It wasn't let's say confined by this physical dimension. It was coming from the spiritual dimension, which was able to be, let's say, perceived. And all these cowherd boys and Krishna, the sound of their ankle bells. What I was hearing, that sound that I was hearing the sound of thousands of feet pattering and ankle bells, the jingling of the ankle bells, and thousands. There were thousands of cowherd boys. And cows, you know, the trampling of the hooves of the cows, and all kinds of totally blissful and joyful sounds of merrymaking. Krishna was playing his flute. I was hearing Krishna's flute, and many cowherd boys were also playing their flutes, you know, running along so joyfully and blissfully and happy. They were completely like, you know, you've seen that there's one picture where Krishna and Balaram are running ahead, you know, and all the cowherd boys are racing behind them, you know, to try to catch Krishna and Balaram like that. This was what was happening. Krishna and Balaram were coming in the lead, and thousands of cowherd boys and cows were running behind them. And all this sound, buffalo horns blowing and flutes playing and just like thousands of ankle bells, you know, jingling, you know, and it was so blissful, such a bliss. The sound was so blissful that, you know, as it was getting closer and closer, the blissful nature of that sound was affecting my consciousness directly, more and more and more. It was as they were coming closer, the experience of Ananda upon hearing the sound was increasing and increasing in my heart. And then as Krishna was coming, actually, I was lying on the floor like this, looking up, and I was seeing that Krishna, they were coming on a platform about maybe 5 feet above the ground, above the floor that I was lying on. And they were coming as if they were walking on glass. In other words, I could see the bottoms of their feet, and I was seeing, and watching them all, rushing toward me, and Krishna was looking down at me when he came to about the position from where I am and the wall. He was standing, running along. He and Balaram and thousands of cowherd boys. They were coming. I saw them coming from a distance. They were coming. They were stampeding over me, and I was seeing Krishna was looking down at me with a beautiful smile and playing his flute and looking at me with extremely enchanting eyes. beckoning me to join him. And then as they were rushing over me, the sound, because it became so uproarious and so tumultuous, sweet, flutes and ankle bells and buffalo horns blowing, and not only that, but they were all laughing, happy. It was like so happy. They were all happy, all the cow, and they were all like bubbling over with joy and happiness, in their chasing after Krishna and everything. It was like so much fun, incredible fun, and I was seeing all that and experiencing all that, and seeing Krishna looking at me in such a loving way, in such a sweet way. He was looking at me, and then as they're passing over me, the ananda experience of their influence totally overwhelmed me when they were as they ran over me, and thousands of them were running over me, and I fell unconscious. I didn't remember what happened after that. All I remember is that I woke up the next morning, and wanting to tell someone about this, but being afraid to, that they would think that I was crazy. But the reality is that after this experience convinced me that Krishna is reality, because after only 1 week, and this experience made me fully convinced of the power and potency of this Hare Krishna movement. That there really is a Krishna. It's not just a mythological story, but there really is a Krishna. Before that, the first night when I joined this movement, the first night that I stayed in the temple, after I fell asleep, there was many very angelic and saintly persons, sannyasis and highly elevated devotees. I don't know where they were from. It didn't seem that they were, like Western devotees. They were whom I, to this date, think to be our predecessor acharyas. That they were coming and they were surrounding my bed, and they were forcibly convincing me with argument after argument after argument, basically telling me that this is the chance that I'm going to get in this lifetime to go back home, back to Godhead, and telling me, do not leave, do not leave, do not leave, never leave. You must stay. They were again and again forcibly convincing me that I must stay. Because of that experience, that dream, I decided the next morning that I would never leave this Krishna consciousness movement. Because they convinced me that in previous lifetimes I had made some mistakes, and that's why I was again born in this lifetime, and that I must stay, that this is the chance that I'm going to get in this lifetime to go back home, back to Godhead. And then within the next week, Krishna personally gave me his darshan. I got darshan of Krishna Balaram within the first week that I was in this movement. And I can only attribute that to the fact that Srila Prabhupada has spread the Krishna consciousness movement to the Western world. That by the power of Srila Prabhupada's desire, this Krishna consciousness movement was spreading, and the Krishna consciousness movement spreading means that it was giving others the opportunity to experience Krishna, to realize Krishna, to see Krishna face to face and eye to eye. Of course, I was not talking with Krishna. Krishna wasn't talking with me, but I was hearing his flute playing. When I first joined this movement, for a few days before that incident, my temple president, because I played flute in my childhood, in my youth, in my school orchestra and whatnot. So when I came to the movement, I said I used to join up with the Harinam Sankirtan party. So I used to bring my flute along and play the flute. And at the first Sunday feast also I played the flute, you know. But my flute was a little jazzy, you know, because I was a jazz flute player, you know. So it wasn't exactly, you know, in other words, it was kind of like driving my temple president crazy, you know, because, you know, I was overdoing it a little bit. You know? So he took me to the side after about the third day, and told me that, you know, Prabhu, you know, actually, you know, it's more important that you should play kartals and mridanga, you know, and purify yourself so that you can get the chance of hearing Krishna's flute, you know, and then you'll know what flute playing really is, you know. So he says, until that time, you know, you should. But actually, I didn't tell him, you know, but within that first week, I was actually hearing Krishna's flute, you know, in that incident, you know, Krishna, not only Krishna's flute, but all the ankle bells, the buffalo horns, the joyful, you know, cheering and the what is it called? Elation of the cowherd boys, you know. It was a completely amazing and wonderful experience. That experience had, you know, made me realize that Krishna is a reality and that this movement is for real. You know, it's not just that Prabhupada is taking us for a ride. You know, and we're going to end up at the end of our life, you know, realizing that when you're dead, you're dead. You know, that there is no hereafter. You know, but there really is a Krishna. You know, the only reason why I'm speaking this is not by way of self-glorification or any such thing. What am I? You know, so what? I saw Krishna. One babaji, you know, came to my room, banging on my door. I had met him several times, and suddenly, somehow or other, he knew where I was staying, and he came and he was banging on my door. Wham, 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 wham. You know, Aindra, wham, 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 wham. He's telling me, old babaji, maybe 70 years old, 76 years old. You know, and he's calling my name, Aindra, open up, Aindra, bam, 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 bam. You know, so I come up and open the door, and he comes kind of like bursting in, and he's telling Aindra, I saw Krishna. Aindra Prabhu, I saw Krishna. And I was going, oh no, you know, here's, you know, another, you know, because I didn't know him that well, you know. And he said, no, really, I saw Krishna. You know, and I was thinking that you know, is this guy some Sahaji or something or what? You know, he saw Krishna. Yeah, right. He saw Krishna. You know, of course, I'd seen Krishna. I knew what it meant to see Krishna. You know, but you know, and I was willing to, you know, give him an ear. You know, yes, okay, well, you know, maybe he did see Krishna. You know, how am I to know? You know, we're in Vrindavan after all. You can practically expect to see Krishna behind any bush in the bend in the road. You know, because this is Krishna's Leela Sthan. You know, so anyway, he's saying, no, you don't understand. You know, I actually saw Krishna. I was going for Madhukari, you know, and because in Vrindavan, hardly anyone, everyone's stingy in here in Vrindavan, they won't give you nothing. So I wanted to cross the river, cross the Yamuna River, to go to the other village because people are more generous there, and I'll get a little something more, But it was starting to rain, and I wanted to cross the river quickly, So I saw that there was one boat, and there was a boatman, and there were some girls on the boat, and they were starting to leave the shore already. So I started wading out into the water, and calling to them, wait, I want to go too, wait for me, I want to go too, me too. And so he started going out into the water, and he was telling me, that as he was going out into the water, suddenly the boat disappeared. And then it dawned on him that what he was seeing, Krishna was the boatman, but they were covered with dust, Braj, they were covered, so he couldn't understand them, who they were. And the girls were Krishna's gopis, and Krishna was going with in the boat with the gopis across the Yamuna River, as he sometimes does, And then he started saying, oh no, I saw Krishna, but I didn't recognize Krishna, Then he said, actually I saw him, and he was lamenting in my presence. Actually I saw him, I saw Krishna, but I didn't recognize him. But I actually saw him. It was actually Krishna and the gopis in the boat. I saw him. Then he started telling me that actually, it is not so difficult to see Krishna. In fact, because we're in Vrindavan Dham, Krishna is eternally present in Vrindavan Dham. He can manifest himself according to his own sweet will. Certainly it's not a difficult thing to see Krishna. As a matter of fact, we're seeing Krishna every day. We're going down to the temple and having the darshan of the deities. You think the deity is not Krishna? The deity is Krishna. Who is not seeing Krishna? He says it is not at all difficult to see Krishna. The difficult thing is how to change your character. And he's poking me in the heart. The difficult thing is how to change your character. It is not at all difficult to see Krishna. You can see Krishna. Anyone can see Krishna. The surprising thing is who's thinking that he's not seeing Krishna. As a matter of fact, there's nothing but Krishna to be seen. The surprising thing is that there's people thinking that they're not seeing Krishna. That someone is not seeing Krishna, that is surprising. Because all there is to see is Krishna. Krishna is identical with his energies. There's no difference between Krishna and his energies. He's omnipresent. And the only thing that anyone is looking at is Krishna. That actually there isn't anything which is not supramundane. Everything is supramundane. The only thing that is mundane is our vision. Our consciousness. So because our consciousness is mundane, we're taking something to be mundane. Even we take Krishna to be mundane. Even we see Krishna. But just because you see Krishna doesn't mean that you've changed your character. Easy thing to see Krishna, not at all difficult. The difficult thing is how to change your character.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.